It worked 2
All
weeks,
right.
actually. The
Yeah.
second one worked. The first one didn't.
All right, we are live. This is the Data Center News Show, and this is the post party, the post hangover. We should have a hangover movie, the Yotta hangover show.
Yeah.
What
happened in Vegas stays in Vegas? Is that right?
It's very true. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. We were all at Yotta together. It was a fun time hanging out with folks, and really just wanted for this show to be like, any amazing takeaways from that show. I have a couple. I mean, it was a really cool show, and I like the ecosystem seemed to be pretty balanced. Like it was a lot of different suppliers there, a lot of power, but of course there's going to be power guys there. But yeah, so what did y'all think? Oh, before we get there, why don't we introduce? Everybody should know who you are. It's Marty and Gino. They don't need any introduction, but go ahead, Marty. Introduce yourself.
Marty Rangus from Johnson Controls, and I'm in our cooling as a service division. So thanks for having me on again, Amy.
Yeah. And Gino.
So Gino Ginés Toromazote, currently sitting behind a couple stealth startups. Yeah, so glad to be here.
Yes.
Let's see if we can do it. Amy, do you think we can get him to spill the beans by the end of the show?
Yes, let's do it. That's our mission. Can we convince Gino to on the show? Give it up. No, that's very cool. Yeah, the industry's moving fast. Well, we're all startup people. I'm a startup. Marty's ex-startup. Gino's a new startup person. So a lot of stuff moving in the space. Did y'all see the Applied Atomics group? Their startup. Did y'all see them there at the show?
Mm-hmm.
So they are a power plant, but they're not only building the small modular nuclear reactor, they're actually building the entire power plant, the nuclear power plant itself. So the reactor with the power electrical infrastructure around it, which I thought was kind of interesting. That's a lot of cool new stuff.
Did they say when that would be available?
I have a follow-up call with them, so stay tuned. There's
a lot of discussions, as you guys know, about nuclear, but when is it really going to be available? So
yeah. Before the show, I had Brian Smith. He was there. I had Brian Smith and Evan Pierce on and talking through, especially with the changes with the administration, and they're like expedite, get nukes up, get it running, get it going. We need power. And I don't think the timelines have changed much. I mean, they got that. I think they're going to streamline once it's actually viable and it gets to the permitting process with FERC or whoever, that they'll streamline that process, but you still have to go through the same upfront kind of stuff. That's my understanding. Yeah, for sure. Yes. I don't know. It's crazy town.
What was your big takeaway from, did you have one or two from the show?
And me?
Yeah.
Mine was, So mine was really, I listened to is it NL? Who was the big main first day, the INEL? They were like a newer startup. Is it them?
Jen Backer, yeah, Ineo.
No, not Jen Becker. They're actually a data center developer. I think it's INL or whoever. Anyway, there are all these acronyms. Who knows? But basically, from a data center developer, what they did to fund their sites is they initially put crypto on it, and then crypto mined while they're waiting on their load to get there. And then the crypto mining funded their sites and their site development. That's what they did. I was like, that's super smart. It's like, all right, let's go get a little bit of load, sit there and make our money, and then make our mining. And then
you're putting the load to work, mining crypto, so doing something while you're doing everything else. I don't know about the the making money on crypto. I think it's a much tighter proposition than it used to be.
It used to be, yeah. So I know Bitcoin is still doing okay, but I thought that was kind of smart of them. Yeah, for sure. I think that my biggest takeaway, other than it's a data center conference, so there's just a lot of activity and a lot of people doing a lot of things. And, all these transformer guys and all these switchgear guys who are like, yeah, we've got some. You can have them now. And I'm like, okay, hold on, time out. Like everything I hear out of everybody else is that you're years out before you can get any sort of anything, like engines, whatever. But then there's this guy go, no, I've got like 6 of them. They're 22 megawatts and they're rebuilt, but they're certified to be whatever. But I can drop you 6, recip engines at 22 megawatts. And I'm like, okay, all right. I don't know, but it was like all over the place about, power availability, gear availability. That was the other thing too, that I thought was pretty interesting, but what did you gauge, like, as far as like new people or industry veterans in the space? What do you think? What was your feeling as far as how many newbies were there?
I mean, I got the feeling it was a pretty heavy split towards, towards the old bees, the people that
the old guys, right?
I recognize a lot of people. There were certainly plenty of new people there, but Gino, did you get the same feeling, or you thought it was mostly newbies?
I thought it was like 60-40. It says 60% was, I don't know, that's just my sentiment. Not that it's accurate or anything, but for me, the people I know, about 60-40.
Yeah. Did you see any new tech there that you thought was really kind of cool? Did y'all see any new tech?
There's a company, Verdigris. Oh, sorry, Gino, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Marty. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a company called Verdigris. I've been following them for a while, and they have developed some really tremendous power line monitoring tech. And what they do is they can monitor how power is used, and they've been used at some of the large telecoms and saved them millions and millions of dollars and made them tremendously more efficient. This is really some spectacular stuff. It's called Verdigris, if anybody wants to check it out. But that's one that impressed me most.
Yeah. And that's figuring out where the power is being used, like which systems inside the building are using it, or
it does a lot. It does that, but it also will track if there's fluctuations in power or irregularities in power to predict failures and things like that. It's
interesting,
pretty cool stuff.
That is cool. Yeah.
I saw a couple of demonstrations on immersion cooling and liquid cooling that I thought were interesting. Just because, this is not new. I guess supercomputing world has been around for a while, at least a couple of years, but I have not seen actually an immersion cool tank in display, which is by now is probably old news. But to see it was cool. It was cool to see it in action. From a new technology perspective, I think what was most interesting to me is that there are a lot of new business models that are coming to market that I was pretty interested in finding out more about.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have the land developers developing electrified parks, if you will, and I think like everybody has a different roadmap to be able to get there, and they have different ideas on how to monetize those assets. So I thought that was very interesting. I thought that the market generally is not really pursuing going to, overnight to the 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt racks, like most people think is going to happen. I think that's going to be really limited to the powers that be, and for very limited select few customers. And I think being focused on more what is really available and what is really commercial. I think that was interesting in how to make that more efficient. So there are a few groups out there that are really working around and making that ecosystem a lot leaner, cleaner, faster. And to me, that is really valuable when you're trying to help a startup or you're trying to help a client actually really decipher how to go build data centers in an efficient manner that is going to satisfy the customer's needs ultimately.
Right.
And that to me is really where a lot of the hype is missed because everybody's hyping about, what's the latest of this? You see that one do that. And, that's always great, but how can you do that at scale? How quickly can you do it at scale, right? Like same thing with nuclear and SMRs. How quickly are you going to be able to really get there?
Right.
There are rumblings of the government doing some things in order to bring agility to that, and at least that would put that equipment in those instances to the test before it comes to market, to real commercial market. And I think that's important. I think that's something that we have to be cognizant and aware of so that everybody or all operators can actually devise a roadmap to be able to get there, right? So those conversations I thought were very, very interesting because those are more realistic and more tangible at the moment, whereas all the hype of different things that you can do and you cannot do is very unlikely to be commercialized. And when it's commercialized, it'll probably take a different shape. Mm-hmm. So there are a few trends in the market that I've been following that I think are very, very cool. One of them is, I don't know, Marty, if you know Alan, or Amy, if you guys know Alan Foster at Musashi. So they're bringing supercapacitors in racks in order to be able to maintain the level of power distribution for AI and, reduce the shock of, going from 100 kilowatts down to 0 to 240 kilowatts the next second. So those are things that I think are very commerciable. They're very smart in how they're addressing the real problem at the moment. And I like to see those type of what I think are going to be winning technologies, get a little bit more limelight, if you will. But it's hard to miss. A lot of these things are highly technical. I don't understand them. I don't pretend to understand them completely. I just understand what they do, and what are the the pros and cons. But I thought that there was a plethora of service providers out there, including to the the people that are doing different types of CDUs, at different scales, that are going to enable the true infrastructure is going to get deployed at scale here in the near future and potentially for years to come. And I'm just, it's almost like the web. What is really going to get standardized? I mean, that if you could figure that out, wouldn't that be awesome?
I don't know if we're going to have standards. It's moving so fast. I mean, how do you standardize something that's changing every 6 months for the most part? And I understand the super transistor you were talking about. That makes perfect sense because as we add more and more power, we go from a 20 kilowatt rack to a 1 megawatt rack. What happens is that fluctuates as it goes up and down. It turns up, you're going to turn on training, turn off training, but whatever it is, if you have variable power loads, something like that's almost a must. So that makes perfect sense. I do have to mention, not new technology, but a new product. Johnson Controls announced their first liquid coolant distribution unit. So we've got CDUs now up to 10 megawatts. It's a great rollout. Beautiful product, great team out of Silent Air. If you guys are familiar with Silent Air, that's a division that Johnson Controls bought. But we had a really good reception at the show for it. So
you did? Great.
Had to say that. Yeah, I was there.
I had to say that. Yes, for sure. Yeah. No, I this whole conversation around balancing load and just the wide what that does to equipment, and even not even just the servers themselves, but just the all the infrastructure, building infrastructure equipment around it when they're having to navigate through that. I did see some some solutions there around just kind of managing through the wide variations of how much load is being pulled at any moment in time. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's cool to see the people trying to address some of that. I think the utility providers would appreciate it as well, especially if they're like 1 second having to do this or having to do that, and those kinds of things. So I didn't see too many. I saw some gas folks there, like for people doing behind the meter stuff, but I didn't see too many utilities. But were there any panels with any utility providers on it?
I didn't see any utilities. You're right. I did notice Bloom was all over the place. Bloom Energy with their, their nat gas fuel cells seem to be bouncing around. So
I mean,
behind the meter stuff.
Right. They do have a viable solution that scales, right? So that's why they've been so successful. It is a pretty clean solution in my opinion, and I think they're being rewarded. The market is rewarding them with tons of business.
All right. So do a 101. Someone do a 101 on what the difference between a fuel cell is and not a fuel cell. I mean, what is a fuel cell? What is a fuel cell?
Yeah, I'm happy. Gino, I'm happy to do it.
Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah. So we'll compare like a recip or a turbine with the fuel cell. So recip or turbine is actually burning gas. You feed a natural gas, it burns it, and then it turns that energy into power.
Right.
A fuel cell, and it has exhaust and carbon dioxide and particulates, and it has to be maintained. There's all the things that people are pretty familiar with. So a fuel cell is really an electrochemical reaction. So you're feeding it natural gas, and it goes through these cells, and these cells generate power. It was some technology that was designed to put power, let's say, on Mars. Like if you're going to travel interstellar, it's like, how do you do power, without combustion? So it's power without combustion. It goes through the gas goes through the fuel cells, and it generates power. It does generate about 400 C. I mean, pretty high temperature exhaust, but that's just pure carbon dioxide. There's no NOx, there's no SOx. It's rather clean as a power source. Probably some of the things that are great about it is it's like it's hot swappable, so you don't have to shut it down to maintain. It runs for about 5 years. You pull out one of these little cells and throw in a new one. So it's very easy to maintain. The power for a fuel cell is really designed to be pretty steady, Amy. So it's like once you turn it on, I mean, they have some tech where they can make the power more variable, but it's designed to, once you turn it on, if it's 10 megawatts, it's going to be running at 10 megawatts, and you're not going to touch it for 5 years, and it just turns on and it goes. Whereas if you're burning gas, you can adjust how much power it's generating. It is more expensive. It's quite a bit more expensive than a recip or a gas turbine. And probably the other benefit, though, is that or differentiation is that Bloom says they can deliver these in 90 days. So
wow,
it's true. I mean, at Johnson Controls, we did a project with Bloom, and they delivered it in 90 days.
Okay, all right.
In the good old USA.
So is it comparable as far as efficiencies or engines and turbines?
Yeah,
how much gas you're using?
They claim to be more efficient. Efficient. That's a good question. So 50%, whereas I think your gas, you're going to be in your 40, 45. And obviously, people can do all these things. You can do, combined heat and power. There are all these things you can bolt on top. But just out of the gate, it's very efficient.
So is there any exhaust heat that you can capture to do fun things with, or no? Yes?
Not the same exhaust heat. I think turbines and the fuel cells have about the same. I think with the fuel cells about 400 C, so that's quite a bit of heat that's coming out of there that you could do combined heat and power or heat absorbers and turn it into cooling, and there's many things you can do there.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, I guess if they can do it in 90 days, then Bloom is busy.
Yeah.
So is the PSI of the gas the same? Is it different? I mean, is there from a gas infrastructure, is it the same that you have to do?
Well, it's all comes down to efficiency, right? So how much goes in is how much comes out. So it's about the same in terms of the requirement.
Interesting. That's cool. That's
Good question.
awesome.
Do you
Yeah,
know, did I
no,
miss anything on fuel cells there?
I think the only component is, if you're doing straight up power generation, you know, it oftentimes comes tied back with some sort of battery backup system, so some sort of a BESS system,
right.
in order to make sure that you're capturing the entirety of the load. Um, and yeah, I think you can't explain it any better, Marty. And like I said, it's a very clean solution. I think they've done a hell of a job in not only marketing but developing the solution and repurposing some data infrastructure in order to bring agility to logistics and manufacturing. So the market is rewarding them, is going to continue to reward them, and yeah, they're doing great. There's no question about it. It's a
Are
great
they
solution.
are they avoiding the air permitting? Because they're a fuel cell, then they're not doing any emissions.
They are, because there's no NOx or SOx. No NOx or
Those
SOx.
details I don't know, but I would imagine so. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
maybe some states, but most states, as long as they don't have NOx or SOx, I think they are releasing carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
That's still an output. So I'm not an expert in that area, but my understanding is that they have some benefits.
Interesting.
No perfect solution out there, right? I mean,
There's not. But if you can avoid the 18-month to 24-month air permitting process, I mean, might be worth it, right? Yeah. And then if you can still get them in 90 days, that compresses a lot of that stuff down, because the recip engines well, depending on who you talk to at a conference, you can get.
I got them in the backyard. How many do you need?
Exactly. How many you want? I got plenty, Like,
Transformers,
what are you talking about? It's just like, did you see? I was talking to transformer guys, dude. Like, well, yeah, we have them in stock. You want some? I was like, what? Okay. Well, why are all these other developers saying we can't get them for 2 years? I'm like, I don't know, y'all. I don't know. No idea. Probably because it has to be exact transformer for an exact need and whatever it might be. I don't know. I'm not an electrical engineer. I know enough to be dangerous, and I play one on TV. So there you go. That's all you're getting out of me.
There you go.
Too funny. So what did you think about the Marty, did you get to see Sean and our quantum computing?
I missed your quantum computing thing. I'm so sorry. But the rumor was it was the best.
Was that the rumor? Okay, that's just because we bought you dinner, Marty. That's because we bought you dinner. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, that's pretty.
It's fascinating, right? Like, not a lot of people are talking about it. I mean, we hear about quantum, but if we're so focused on AI and building up the infrastructure for AI, I mean, quantum could turn all of this on its head again.
It can. Yeah, it's super crazy, and the load swings, like that, like they don't even know what it's going to do, right? They have no clue, and the power requirements or any of that stuff. It's funny. One of the major, we were talking through it, but one of the recent studies was, you're doing quantum computing. It's like being back on the days when a PC was not connected to the internet, right? So it was just your, whatever you're computing, whatever you're solving is on your PC, on your server, whatever it might be. And these things have to be cooled down to like below zero and like all these other things, right? But Penn figured out a way to transmit quantum data over regular internet. So
how did they do that? I heard it's a completely different language, right? It's not bits and bytes.
I know. I have no idea. But a lot of this stuff is all happening at universities. QEra is actually the only one there's a couple. There's one and Sean knew about it. It's called Trexel. And it's, I think, based in Germany or Oxford. No, it's in Oxford. And they're actually giving you quantum computing as a service, and you can actually go do quantum computing and pay for your
today. That's available today.
You can do it today. It's available today, and that's at Oxford. And there's another one at Harvard called QEra. Same thing. Wow. You can go buy your quantum computing time and go on there. And apparently QEra is already like they're already profitable. They're cash flowing.
Are they checking to make sure you're not using it to,
Who knows?
encrypted keys?
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to borrow it for a couple hours to hack a few keys.
I'm like Mossad, but you don't know that. And like, but that was like one of the things we were talking about was that like a lot of the what do they call them? The countries or whatever, the security services, they're just hoarding encrypted data because they know at one point they're going to be able to uncrypt it or decrypt it. Right. So they're just gathering encrypted data, and gathering encrypted data and just sitting on it. So when they get their quantum computer, they can decrypt it all. I'm just like,
it's insane. I can't believe it's available as a service right now. That's amazing.
I know.
Hopefully, we're thinking about how much certain things are benefiting from AI, let's say medical research, for example. And doesn't quantum computing just take that and multiply it by thousands? It's thousands of exponentially better, not double, right?
Yeah, theoretically, yes. And theoretically, you should be able to transmit qubits over just a regular internet transmission. But I'm sure that they have some sort of a coding and transcoding engine that allows it to happen. But going back on all this to what is commercial and what is not, right? And that's I think that's a good barometer to kind of talk about these things. Is that quantum computer is still very, very faulty, right? Is very inaccurate, right? So it's not what we think it is yet. What we envision quantum computing to do to spontaneously spark a solution for to cure cancer. That's just not there yet. And I think what I hear, the rumblings that I hear, and maybe some of the stuff I read, is 2 to 3 years out for us to have kind of like a clean first type of clean quantum computer, which I don't know what that means or what that looks like, or what it will be called. And if you think about it, at that point, if you have quantum computing that is clean and is able to spontaneously provide answers, will there be a need for the true awakening of machines and AGI, right? So do we really need to wait 20 to 30 years to be able to get there? So that's just food for thought. But in the interim, right? What the deployments that we're seeing are for AI. They're not really for quantum computing just yet. I am talking to a startup that has quantum computing in the roadmap, and they're starting with that AI framework. And I think that's going to become sort of more of the roadmap for the future for a lot of these companies that are looking to, produce the technology today, tomorrow, and the day after, if you will, right? And that's, I think that's pretty exciting. That's pretty cool. But yet again, that's just not commercially available. So I'm surprised these people are actually in Oxford actually being able to monetize that content, because it probably is for, if it's for research purposes, if it's for, studying, just to, kind of, I don't know, get your graduate degree or your doctorate, and that's part of your thesis, your work, then it would make a lot of sense, right? But I think in the meantime, what is commercially available and what's possible is still, something that a lot of these companies are wrestling with right now, and that is something that I hear in every conference that I go to, right? Everybody just doesn't know what they're going to do tomorrow. I mean, as much as they want to sound, like they have the solution, they have the notion, everybody's kind of guessing at the moment, right? As to, should we build more immersion? Should we more CDUs? How should we architect and design our data centers, right? I think there are outfits out there that are being very smart and calling it future-proof design and infrastructure, and and I think you have to allow for that. I mean, you can't just sit back on your laurels and think you know everything, right? You have to prepare for the unknown, and I think I'm certain that everybody that is planning for an uncertain future is going to probably be better prepared. Especially, tying it back to what you were saying, Amy, about proprietary information, proprietary data.
Right.
What is my Coca-Cola formula that I don't want anybody else to know? What am I going to do with that? How am I going to safeguard that against the rest of the world? Well, I have to put it and safeguard it somewhere where nobody can access it, right? And that probably
under the mattress. It's going under the mattress. That's where people are putting stuff now. They're going to going back to bottles in the backyard. This is where it's going to go.
Amy, in data center terms, that is an on-premise data center.
Yeah,
right?
Pretty much, right?
Yeah. So I think repatriation of data is a business model moving forward. Yeah. I think the hyperscales might be overbuilding at the moment. And I think we're going to see more and more their main clients, which is really the Fortune 500 globally, that are going to want to repatriate some of that data, safeguard some of their their IP, right? The intellectual property, because why are you going to put that intellectual property in the hands of somebody else to manage it if that's really what makes the difference for your organization? And I mean, imagine what it must be like for defense contractors, right? Yeah. That don't want that sort of data to fall in the wrong hands. Of course. That's why a lot of the research labs are, pseudo government control and owned, right? Because you don't want that kind of stuff falling in the wrong hands, right? It has to be highly secure. It has to be highly protected. It really goes back to the physical security of humanity at this point, because the things that we're dealing with are really life-changing. I mean, yeah, there's so much technology being produced, and with the Hadron Collider, with discovering black matter, things that we didn't know 5 years ago. Those are things, or 7 years ago, whenever it was discovered. I think that we're in the brink of playing with Mother Nature a little bit more than what it was intended, and we're really kind of scratching that cab that you shouldn't be scratching, because it's going to hurt.
So what do you think from on the data center side? It really went from a data center to like a compute, or an AI factory. They call them AI factories now, but whatever. But we still have traditional data center needs for the data, right? That we just need to store somewhere, not necessarily have to be computing or doing, inferencing or whatever it might be. Do you think the data, like, one outweighs the other, or which one do you think pulls ahead?
I mean, they're both can continue to grow, Amy, in my opinion, because we still need places to store data. We still need regular old cloud computing. Everything's not going to be AI. I took photos from my son's birthday, and where are they going to put them? I'm not putting them in an AI factory. They're going to be dumped in some old cloud. And if I want to pull one up and show it to my mom, I go, look at your grandson. That's what's going to happen. That's still going to be a huge part. And everyone I've talked to said that part of the industry is still continuing to grow as well. Obviously, we're paying a lot of attention to inference and training for AI, but that whole part of the industry is still continuing to grow.
Are they done in the same building? Like, are you storing data? Yes. Yeah, and then they're just like, they have data halls and they have compute halls, or
I talked to some people at the show that are building modular data centers, and they're saying you can go rack to rack. I mean, we can have a high power rack that's going to be 600 megawatts, and one next door is going to be flat old 20 kilowatts, and doesn't need all that. Obviously, the cooling has to be pretty sophisticated for that. You're going to be doing plate-based cooling and probably a combination of that with air cooling. But I think when Gino talked about how do you future-proof, I mean, future-proof has to be how do I get different levels of power to different parts of my data center? Because right, the 1 megawatt rack's coming. Then what? So I think a lot of the future-proofing comes down to power.
Right.
So I mean, now the cooling. So you keep pumping more power. So
exactly. And the ability for you to manage the data center at different levels or different levels of cooling even, right? And how you're going to do that. And is it at the rack level, or is it in the ambient air, or is it like on the floor, or however you're doing it, right? Where are you getting your cooling from? But
I saw some tech that automatically adjusted cooling to the rack based on this rack or this device needs more, and it's all automated. I thought that was fascinating. That's got to be the future.
Yeah. And there's another guy I talked to there, and on the power side, talking about obviously you want to balance loads, and there's tech out there that kind of handle this with the power. But then you've got like maybe 3 or 4 different power sources. So those automatic transfer switches, combining the monitor of this with an automatic transfer switch so that you can go from one source to the other source, so that the power loads somehow stay consistent on the other end of whatever's happening on the energy infrastructure side. People are looking at doing that too, right? So that's kind of an interesting thing, and that because the energy obviously impacts your ability on how long your systems last, right? Your cooling systems last. If they're getting, what do they call it? Dirty power? Or I don't know what they call it, but
well, I've seen more data center outages because of in smart systems like that didn't work when they were right. So I don't have a lot of faith in that. So that's why I really that's why I have a lot of faith in what Alan Foster and team are doing at Masashi, because they're putting the capacitor in the rack where it's actually needed, and it can hold the load until it's stable again. Not indefinitely, but it really does provide the necessary resource at the necessary time for the right amount, right? And that, I think, is for companies that are spending millions of dollars in a single rack. How do you safeguard against the unpredictable power availability that could exist in a given market or data center, right? So so those options are kind of cool for that reason. Tying it back to the what is commercially available and what is not, and what is feasible and what is not. That's what it goes back to. I think what is feasible going forward is that companies don't rely on somebody else's data center for their intellectual property. I think that's key. I think that they would want a provider that is going to have a solid solution for them to provide those inference applications that you're speaking about, Amy, to be able to compute properly at the edge and have the proper failover systems to be able to maintain those applications, delivering the product that the customers need. Because if I'm an enterprise delivering Tesla, for example, delivering driverless vehicles across the country, and I don't have a failover system in order to make sure that that vehicle is doing what it's supposed to do in every second, a millisecond of that operation, then I may not have a viable system product to work with, right? And so it depends how dependable that is. Imagine if you were to translate that into a hospital and you're doing heart surgery or something to that effect. If the mechanic Rob were to do the wrong thing at the wrong time, or cut in the wrong place at the wrong time, or what have you, when we're dependent to make millimetric decisions, right? So those are the things that I think matter, and therefore. Yeah, I mean, cloud is going to continue to grow for your mundane non-mission critical essential functions, right? But most of the companies that have invested or invested in the billions at this point are global large scale companies that are depending on the CSPs, hyperscalers, to be able to deliver that data where they need it and how they need it. Is going to change dramatically. I think that's going to change the way where data centers are going to want to have enterprise users are going to want to have more control over their data, because that's really what their business is now. It's not what it used to be. It's not like all my website is delivered out of Amazon. Who cares? No, it's not that anymore, right? It's that application in Amazon now is delivering a product that is near the actual use case and business case that is mission critical, right? And that is more valuable than just a mundane, where are my pictures on the web, kind of thing. Which I can tell you, going back 12 years, there are people out there that actually are somewhat IT literally and savvy, and they've decided way back when, I'm not going to put my pictures on the web, on Facebook or anywhere. I actually put them on my server, in my server closet in my office. Right. So there are people out there that do that, which is pretty cool. You think, why is this guy doing that or whatever? I think there's some genius to that madness, right? And
yep. Do you think there's more and more more and more enterprises, like if they have I don't know what we do with the offices or office spaces, but more and more people have that where they have servers back at their they have server rooms again. Like they have those, right? I talked to somebody in my company, they do cybersecurity software. They have a server room in their office. That's where all their data is kind of stored. That's where they keep it. They don't have anything on the cloud at all.
I may have too many IT friends. I have a lot of friends that have an IT lab in their garage.
In their garage, yes. I think homes get them too. Like at some point, right? A home is going to have. Remember back in the day? Oh, I'm going to date myself, y'all. I'm going to totally date myself. Like it was in 2004 when Microsoft came out with Microsoft Home, and we had the server for the house, and it had your what was it? Your movie room was on it, and some other things were on it. Do you remember? Some Microsoft Home?
I thought you were going to say you did tape backup.
Yes, exactly. We're going to go back to that.
I mean, I've seen more and more of it. It's just so easy, obviously, to go to the cloud. You need compute. It's easy to do that. But you're in fintech. You have IP that's critical. Yeah. You're not. You're going to try to keep it on site and try to protect as much as you can. There's definitely trends with. I've seen some mid-sized software companies. They're saving money by hosting it themselves. They're actually, they're building their own data centers, and they're saving a lot of money. They're giving up convenience, but they're saving a lot of money. So, is there a major trend and everybody going to go that way? No, but it's certainly something that is growing. I mean, once a year I take I keep everything in Google Photos because I love Google Photos. But once a year I take it all and I back it up, and I got a hard drive backup in the house.
Yeah. I will say the startup world, because the whole venture capital thing is kind of changing, and there's a big, huge, especially the last, I would say, 2-3 years, there's been less and less venture capital for newer startups. So we can't afford to go to AWS. We can't afford to go to Microsoft and have them host our stuff. And I think some of that is so and then they'll do the hosting credits, like Microsoft. You become a Microsoft startup, basically they're giving you hosting credits so you can host your stuff there because they know that this is an issue. But what happens when those hosting credits burn off? You've already built your stuff on Azure. It's, you're in the Microsoft realm, and then now you're just like, now what do I do? Because it took a lot of startups longer to get actual traction because nobody was buying anything. I'm talking prop tech related.
Free drugs. You're gonna love these free drugs. They're so good.
Oh, right. And then exactly. And so So I think the startup and the whole PE, VC, helping companies get off the ground, they're not going to go to the cloud. It's too expensive. Like it's too expensive for anybody, small business wise too. Some people do because they don't have IT staff and they don't have that ability to manage this stuff, but they quickly realize how expensive it is. And AWS is expensive. Sorry, AWS.
Yeah, well, they're not going to build, or they probably won't build their own 600 megawatt rack in their.
No, they won't do that. No, they won't do that.
That's not going to happen either. So there's some.
No, we got to figure out some co-locate. This is my request. Some co-locator is for startups. Like, give me a little blade. Let me do my little thing, a little small, and then just build out a whole rack of 1,000 startups, right, or whatever. Somebody doesn't want to manage that.
Oh, there's so many of them. DigitalOcean,
yes,
Phoenix Nap. I mean, there are. They used to. I don't know if Skill Matrix is still around, but yeah, I mean, there's still tons of businesses out there that Server Farm was actually in that business model at one point.
Yes. Did they go away from it?
Critical was in that model. Yeah, that was in the model as well. I mean, there are a ton of smaller operators that had that retail colocation capacity, and actually it's a thing of beauty because you start with something very small and then it continues to grow organically, right? And and then it becomes more relevant of an operation. But to your point, actually is very cheap to start things on cloud. I actually had a friend of mine that had a blockchain company that was completely built on AWS framework, and I think it got to be so expensive so fast that he could not continue to operate, and he had to let go of staff, and then pretty soon he had to close the door, and he was going to be the only middleware framework in blockchain outside of the IBM ecosystem. And I thought he had something really, really unique. But yeah, I mean, infrastructure costs are a thing, are serious. And you got to safeguard that intellectual property, because once it's in somebody else's cloud, it's tough to get it out. It's tough to repatriate it. And it's expensive because you're going to pay twice for that infrastructure. You pay for it on the way up and then on the way out. And then you're going to be paying for 2 instances of that data above and beyond your redundancy. So in a production live environment. So you have to plan that accordingly. And companies are doing it. I'm certain of it. I'm hearing about it more and more every time I go to a conference. There's more evidence of that happening now. Data itself is growing so fast and so exponentially that it really isn't an ocean that you can avoid, right? So it's really growing that fast. So there's plenty for everybody, but everything has a limit, right? So I mean, like, for example, even to your point, Marty, in Google, one of the things that burns me is that I never wanted to pay Google for anything, but I've hit my max and now I have to pay them.
I know, right?
Stuff. And I'm like, I never wanted to pay Google for anything. Which computer am I going to be able to download that stuff that has enough memory? But is that computer even going to be accessible 10 years from now when I need the data? Not now, right? So
that 10 years of free Gmail, and you finally, Gino, you passed the marker. You gotta pay. You're gonna fork over that $9.99 a month, Gino. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. I don't know what I pay, but on my OneDrive on Microsoft, I get a terabyte. They give me a terabyte of data. And I don't know if it's something. I'm like, I don't know how much I don't know. Ask my accountant how much I'm paid for that. But yes, no idea.
I got a stat to share with you guys. You ready for this?
Share it. Yes.
Exciting. So I was reading this article. Came out from Apollo, and the stat comes from some department of the government, and that by the end of this year, hyperscalers will be contributing more to our GDP than consumer spending.
That's crazy.
Right?
That's crazy.
They're the same right now. They're the same as we speak. Hyperscalers are spending the same amount of money than consumers in the United States as a portion of GDP. So it's great. So when these guys, like one of my favorite sessions that Yotta was the finance track, and they had OpenAI and they had KKR in there, and Andrew Peach, who's this guy from KKR, and someone asked him, "Is there a bubble? Is there an AI bubble?" He's like, he goes, "I don't want to eat my words, but I don't think so." He said the valuation metrics are still rational. The multiples aren't even close to .com days. And he said overall the market's acting pretty rationally. And then they had Davis Wu, who's the director of strategy and finance for OpenAI, which was awesome to hear him talk. He goes, "Look, we're short hundreds of megawatts today, and that's just growing. And we're going to have, we do 3 billion daily transactions on GPT, and they're going to have 1 billion users by the end of the year." He said, "We're in the 3rd inning, 9-inning game with just our first product." So, you take that stat and it's mind blowing.
I know. And people, and if you talk to talk to normal people, like anybody, we're in it. So we're in tech. And so we just think this is all commonplace or whatever, but go to the grocery store and talk to somebody in the aisle going, "Do you use ChatGPT?" They're probably going to go, "No, what is that?" It's so weird how we think it's so prevalent, but you'll get on there and they're like, "Oh, is it the thing that helps you write your emails?" Or something simple, but the masses of people that they're not using it. And just, can you imagine the data center industry when it's actual commonplace that everybody uses some sort of LLM, in their, if they're Google searching, they're using an LLM because Google now is basically Gemini. So if they're still doing Google searches, they're using kind of Gemini, but yeah, that's crazy.
The early days of the internet. Right?
I know.
So what's the internet? How does this work? And then
I know.
who's not using it? So
I know for sure. Even my 82-year-old dad uses the internet, and that's amazing. So there you go. Very cool. Well, look at that. We're at the end of our hour. This was so much fun. Thank you guys for coming on the show. We had to talk Yotta and all things happening in the data center world. All right. Well, if somebody would like to get a hold of you because they want to cool their data centers, Marty, how do they do that?
You can look me up on LinkedIn, Martin Renkus on LinkedIn. Thanks, Amy. It was a lot of fun. Good to see Gino.
Yeah. And Gino, how could somebody get a hold of you?
Mine's a little bit more difficult. So it's Ginez.toromazote@linkedin.com.
Yes, exactly. And, Gino and I have funny names at the end. Mine's Paul Vito. It doesn't look like that, but it is. But we're on LinkedIn as well. So thanks for coming on the show this week. Next week, we're going to be talking site selection and talking through data center site selection and new tools and just the challenges around it. Yes, it's always so much fun. But everybody thinks they have the site. You don't have the site. You don't know. You have to spend so much money to figure out if you have the site. So anyway, we're going to be talking about that next week. So thanks for coming on the show, y'all.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Marty. Take care.
All right. See you. Bye. This has been the show, the Data Center News Show, which comes at you every week, Thursdays at 1:30. I will see y'all next week at Blueprint. If you are in Vegas and at Blueprint, I'm going to be hosting a Data Center 101 panel with my buddy Adam Kramer from Panattoni, Megan Young from PV Case, and Chris Abramo. Thanks for coming. We'll see y'all next week.